class, so today we will continue our lesson on chapter 3, photosynthesis. But this week we only focus on the second stage of photosynthesis, which is dark reaction or Kelvin cycle, and also we're gonna look into the photorespiration process. So, like dark reactions or Kelvin cycle, also known as light independent reaction. It is the second stage of photosynthesis process. Therefore, the light reaction and dark reactions occur at the same time. So the dark reaction or the Kelvin cycle is actually worked out by Melvin Kelvin, in which in this Kelvin cycle it uses ATP and also NADPH that being produced during the light reaction to convert the carbon dioxide into sugar. And this process occur in stroma compared with light reaction that occur in the thylakoid. Therefore, the product of the Kelvin cycle is known as glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. It is a 3-carbon sugar, not glucose, which is 6-carbon sugar. So, for the length of one molecule of glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate to produce, the cycle must take place 3 times, fixing 3 molecules of carbon dioxide to produce 1 molecule of glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate or G3P. The Kelvin cycles or the dark reactions has 4 stages. The first one is known as the carbon fixation, reduction, regeneration of carbon dioxide acceptor, and also product synthesis. So as you can see here, this part is the first phase of Kelvin cycle, the second phase of Kelvin cycle, reduction, the third phase of Kelvin cycle, regeneration of carbon dioxide acceptor, which is referred to RUBP, ribulose biphosphate, and the fourth phase is the product synthesis. So let's look on the process that occur inside the Kelvin cycle. So for the first one, carbon fixation phase, this area, okay. So the carbon dioxide, in which one molecule of carbon dioxide will enter at one time, okay, it will attach, this one molecule of carbon dioxide will attach to ribulose biphosphate. Ribulose biphosphate has 5 carbon molecules. Therefore, they will form 6 carbon molecules. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1 plus 5 equal to 6. They will produce the 6 carbon molecule of unstable sugar compound. Okay, and this process, okay, is being catalyzed by enzyme that known as Rubisco, or also known as ribulose biphosphate carboxylase. And then, during this carbon fixation, the unstable of 6 carbon compound product will immediately split to become 2 molecules of 3 carbon compound, 1, 2, 3, that is known or called as 3-phosphoglycerate or 3-PGA. So 3 multiplied by 5 is equal to 15. 3 multiplied by 1 is equal to 3. So 3 plus 15 is equal to 18. So 3 multiplied by 5 is 18. So 6 multiplied by 3 is 18. So we now have 18 carbon molecules. And then during the reduction phase over here, the second phase, the 3-phosphoglycerate will become 1,3-biphosphoglycerate, in which it will receive one inorganic phosphate group that attached to carbon number 1. That's why it's named 1,3-biphosphoglycerate from the phosphorylations of ADP. okay, and then it will be reduced by 6 molecules of NADPH becoming 6 molecules of NADP plus, and then it also remove the phosphate, the inorganic phosphate group that attach at carbon number 1, thus producing glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. So therefore, for every 3 molecules of carbon dioxide that enter the Kelvin cycle, it will build 6 molecules of glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. And then next, 5 out of 6 molecules of glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate will enter a series that will driven by the ATP, in which it will receive phosphate group from the phosphorylations of ATP, and it will be rearranged to form ribulose biphosphate. And this cycle needs 3 more ATP. So the important stage is to ensure the supply of ribulose biphosphate is continuous to fix the carbon dioxide that enter the Kelvin cycle. And last, the product synthesis phase here. So just now, 5 of molecules of G3P goes to regeneration phase, and only 1 of glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate molecules are used to make glucose, in which later will be converted into starch, cellulose, or other carbohydrates. So therefore, in this Kelvin cycle or dark reactions, 9 ATP has been used, thus producing 9 ADP molecules. So 6 ATP plus 3 ATP, it will produce 3 ADP plus 6 ADP, in which in total 9 ADP molecules. And also 6 NADP plus here has been used, thus producing 6 NADP plus molecules. And also in 1 Kelvin cycle, in one Kelvin cycle process to produce 1 molecule of G3P, 3 molecules of carbon dioxide as an input is being used, thus producing 1 molecule of G3P sugar or glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. And if we want to make the glucose, in which glucose has 6 carbon molecules, therefore we have to multiply by 2 times, in which this is 3 carbon, glucose is 6 carbon, so multiply by 2 times, so 2 times Kelvin cycle, complete Kelvin cycle. Therefore 18 ATP will be used, producing 18 ADP. 12 NADP plus NADPH molecules has been used, producing 12 molecules of NADP plus, and also 6 molecules of carbon dioxide has been used to produce 1 molecule of glucose. So in overall, this is the overview of photosynthesis, in which the light reaction will receive water and also the light energy from the sunlight, and the process is carried out by the molecules in the thylakoid membrane, which is photosystem 1 and photosystem 2. And during the light reaction, they will convert the chemical energy of ATP and also NADPH that will later be used by the Kelvin cycle. And it will split the water molecules and release oxygen molecules to the atmosphere. And then The Kelvin cycle reaction or dark reaction, which is the second stage of photosynthesis, it will receive ATP and NADPH from the light reaction to produce one molecules of glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate from 3 molecules of carbon dioxide, in which later this glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate will be converted into starch, cellulose, or the sucrose. And then the written ADP and also NADP plus will back goes to the light reaction and being used by the light reaction again. So, what are the differences between light-dependent reaction and also light-independent reaction, which is the dark reactions? So, in terms of light energy, light-dependent reaction, of course, it uses light energy. However, dark reaction does not use light energy. The locations of the light reaction occur in thylakoid membrane. Meanwhile, dark reaction occur in the stroma of the chloroplast, and also light reaction use water to produce oxygen. Meanwhile, dark reaction use carbon dioxide to produce glucose. And light reaction does produce ATP and NADPH, in which later will being used by the dark reaction to produce the sugar, thus producing ADP and also NADP plus. Next, we're gonna look on photorespiration. So, photorespiration is actually a process that occurs in light. That's why it's known as a photo, and it consumes oxygen while producing carbon dioxide. That's why it's known as respiration. In together, photorespiration. So, on hot, dry days, plants will close their stomata to conserve the water. However, when they close their stomata, they cannot absorb or uh, uptake the carbon dioxide from the surrounding. Thus, it will cause the oxygen to build up in the stroma due to as the product of the light reaction. And the oxygen and also carbon dioxide are compete for the same site of ribulose biphosphate, which is RUBP, that you can find it in the Kelvin cycle. Therefore, if there is no carbon dioxide, Kelvin cycle will not occur and it will be replaced by photorespiration process. Because oxygen is the competitive inhibitor for carbon dioxide for the active site of enzyme Rubisco. So when the oxygen concentration is higher compared to carbon dioxide inside the stroma, ribulose biphosphate or RUBP will fix the oxygen instead of carbon dioxide, and the photorespiration will occur. So in most plants, such as the C3 plant that we talked earlier, the initial fixations of carbon dioxide occur via the Rubisco, and they will form three compound, which is 3-phosphoglycerate G3P, right? However, in hot and dry day, the C3 plants will close the stomata to prevent the loss of water, and thus it will produce less sugar because the stomata is closed and they cannot uptake the carbon dioxide, and it will cause the declining level of carbon dioxide in the leaf that will later starve the Kelvin cycle. So instead of Kelvin cycle, photorespiration will take place, in which the Rubisco will add oxygen instead of carbon dioxide in the Kelvin cycle, and producing 2 carbon compounds instead of 3 carbon compounds, and that will later leave the chloroplast. Therefore, photorespiration is the process that use like energy and consume oxygen and organic fuel and release carbon dioxide without producing any sugar or ATP. So in normal reaction, carbon dioxide will combine in normal reaction, which is referred to Kelvin cycle. Carbon dioxide will combine with the Rubisco and form two molecules of PGA, phosphoglycerate, or also known as glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. It is the same thing. However, in photorespiration, which replaces the Kelvin cycle, the oxygen will replace the carbon dioxide in non-productive wasteful reaction in which the Rubisco will accept oxygen and producing glycolate, the two carbon compound. It is very a waste reaction. So in many plants, photorespiration is a problem because on a hot, dry day, it can drain as much of 50% of carbon fixed by the Kelvin cycle. So photorespiration is a very wasteful reaction because it does not produce ATP. In fact, they are consume ATP that being produced by the light reaction. And unlike photosynthesis also, photorespiration does not produce sugar, but they only producing two carbon compound and decrease the photosynthetic output by using organic materials for the Kelvin cycle. So this is the Kelvin cycle. Carbon dioxide will attach with the enzyme Rubisco and producing two molecules of glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate or phosphoglycerate, and they will produce a sugar. However, for photorespiration, the oxygen will bind to ribulose biphosphate in the enzyme Rubisco and thus producing glycolate, the two carbon compound, and later will be export out from the from the chloroplast. Okay, and they also use ATP. So the adaptation for photorespiration. How to minimize the photorespiration process? First, we have to increase the concentrations of carbon dioxide in the leaf so that ribulose biphosphate carboxylase or enzyme Rubisco is less likely to produce glycolate through reactions with oxygen. And also, there are alternative mechanism of carbon fixation in which the first one that occur in C4 plant, in which the C4 plant that we will study later will fix the carbon dioxide in different cells. Therefore, they will capture first the carbon dioxide in mesophyll cells and release it into the bundle sheet where the carbon dioxide concentration is quite low. Meanwhile, for cresulations acid metabolism or non-SCAM plant, they will fix the carbon dioxide, at different time in which they will allow the absorptions of carbon dioxide to take place at night. Therefore, they will open the stomata at night to prevent the loss of the water so that the stomata can be closed during the day to minimize the water loss. Okay, so that's all for today, class. Thank you.